And I want someone that can tell me, come on!
In 1967, Janis Joplin was just another singer from Texas. Nobody outside San Francisco knew her name. Then came 14 Seconds at the Monterey Pop Festival that changed everything. Even Mama Cass's jaw dropped. That brief moment turned a small-town girl into rock's first female superstar. But those same 14 seconds also started a countdown. 3 years later, she'd be dead at 27. What happened in those seconds? Why did it seal her fate? The answer might surprise you. Janis Joplin was born on January 19, 1943, in Port Arthur, Texas. Her hometown was a tough, conservative place, filled with oil refineries and strict ideas about how people should live. Her father, Seth, worked as an engineer. That was a good, steady job in a town where most people relied on the oil industry to feed their families. Her mother, Dorothy, worked at a local college. The Joplin family seemed to fit perfectly into the mold of respectable middle-class life. But Janis didn't. Even as a little girl, she felt out of place in a town that expected girls to stay quiet, polite, and obedient. She had too much imagination and too many questions for that kind of life. As she reached junior high in the late 1950s, Janis started standing out in ways that made people in Port Arthur uncomfortable. The bright artistic child they once praised became the girl who spoke up against the town's racism and rigid rules for women. That made her a target. Classmates and neighbors began to see her as a misfit. The change came fast and hit hard. Janis, once liked by many, became an outsider. But that pain pushed her toward becoming the honest, emotional artist the world would later know. High school at Thomas Jefferson was even worse. Her classmates didn't just tease her, they tore her down. They called her pig, freak, nigger lover, and creep. They mocked her weight, her acne scars, and most of all, her refusal to follow the crowd. Janis dared to be friends with black students and to speak out against racism. In a place like Port Arthur, that was seen as betrayal. The bullying was brutal. It left deep scars that stayed with her for life, but it also made her tougher. She took the hurt and turned it into defiance. She wore her outsider label proudly and let it shape the bold, raw voice that would soon shake the music world. In the middle of all that cruelty, Janis found a small group of friends who changed her life. These beatnik kids introduced her to the works of Jack Kerouac. His stories of freedom and rebellion spoke to her heart. With them, she traveled to roadhouses from Port Arthur down to New Orleans. There, she fell in love with the blues, jazz, and folk music she heard. The beatniks showed her that there was a whole world beyond the narrow-mindedness of her hometown. That music became part of her soul and laid the foundation for everything she would become. Even though Janis couldn't read music, she had a gift that amazed everyone who heard her. She could sing like the blues legends, Odetta, Bessie Smith, Big Mama Thornton. She didn't just copy them. She felt their pain, their power, their timing. She made their music part of her. She taught herself to sing with a rawness and force that no one could fake. Her voice was like a storm, wild, honest, and unforgettable. That voice broke through the barriers of a male-dominated world and made her a star. In 1963, Janis left Texas. She hitchhiked nearly 50 hours to San Francisco with her friend Chet Helms. It was more than a trip. It was an escape. In San Francisco, Janis found a city full of people who didn't fit the mold either. She sang in bars and coffee houses. She wore jeans, went barefoot, and sang with all the feeling she had inside. She wasn't trying to be pretty or polished. She wanted to be real, and people noticed. The Daily Texan even wrote about her, calling her someone who dares to be different. But with freedom came danger. In San Francisco, Janis fell deep into drugs and alcohol. She became known for using amphetamines, heroin, and Southern Comfort whiskey. That bottle became part of her image. The drinking and drugs weren't just for fun. They helped her cope with the hurt she carried from years of feeling unwanted. But they also started to take her down a dark path. During this time, she met Jay Whitaker at a pool hall. They became close, and Janis moved in with her. It was Janis's first known relationship with a woman. In the 1960s, that was risky. But Janis didn't care about what was normal. The relationship didn't last, though. Janis's wild lifestyle made it hard for anyone to stay close to her for long. By 1965, Janis was in bad shape. She came home to Texas, weighing just 88 pounds. Her parents were shocked and stepped in to help. Janis tried to clean up. She quit drugs and alcohol for a while. She changed her look, wore her hair in a beehive, and enrolled at Lamar University to study anthropology. She even got engaged to Peter DeBlanc, an IBM worker. They planned a wedding, and for a brief moment, it seemed like Janis might settle down. But Peter ended the engagement and broke her heart. Janis's attempt at a normal life fell apart, and the pull of music and freedom called her back. In May 1966, Janis Joplin was in Austin, Texas. She was singing folk songs and thinking about joining Roky Erickson's 13th floor elevators. Everything changed when Chet Helms, her old friend who had become a big name in San Francisco's music scene, decided his band needed a voice that could match the wild, new rock sound of the city. He sent Travis Rivers to find Janis and bring her to San Francisco. She arrived on June 4, 1966. Just 6 days later, she had her first show with Big Brother and the Holding Company at the Avalon Ballroom. The band that night had James Gurley and Sam Andrew on guitars, Peter Albin on bass, and Dave Getz on drums. The start wasn't smooth. Janis and the band had to get used to each other. It took nearly a year for Janis to learn how to sing with the loud electric sound. In letters home, she called San Francisco exotic. Her parents didn't even know she had moved until she wrote after that first show. That same year, Big Brother found themselves stuck in Chicago. A promoter didn't pay them. They were desperate and signed with Mainstream Records on September 12, 1966. The deal was bad. They got no advance money and had to work for union scale pay, with everything coming out of future royalties. In December, between the 12th and 14th, they recorded their first album in Los Angeles. The sessions were rushed. The sound was clean, too clean for a band known for loud, wild live shows. Still, Janis's double-tracked vocals shone through. The album came out on August 23, 1967. It didn't shoot to the top. It reached number 60, but after their Monterey Pop Festival show, everything changed. Columbia Records saw the magic and bought out their contract. Janis didn't just sing, she attacked the stage. She stomped, she shook, she bent down in front of the guitar players. Her voice moved between soft whispers and wild roars. Fans and critics said watching her was like having your mind rewired. Janis once said, "On stage, I make love to 25,000 different people. Then I go home alone." She wasn't afraid to sweat or smear her makeup. That stage presence rewrote the rules for female rock stars. In her private life, Janis ignored the norms of the time. She had relationships with both men and women. One of the most important was with Peggy Caserta. They met in a strange way, calling out to each other through open windows. Their friendship became romantic. Caserta said watching Janis sing with Big Brother changed her. Their relationship was intense. They cared for each other, but also battled heroin addiction together. Caserta later wrote a book about it, though some who knew Janis said it didn't tell the full truth. Janis wasn't blind to how the world saw her. She knew that her wild drinking, free sexuality, and raw performances shocked people. And she used that. She believed it helped her connect to fans. She said, "Maybe my audience can enjoy my music more if they think I'm destroying myself." Janis believed in living on her terms no matter the cost. She feared failing in front of everyone, but she also believed that being true to herself was already a kind of victory. Then came Monterey Pop Festival on June 17, 1967. Over 50,000 people showed up. Stars like Jimi Hendrix and The Who played. But Janis, just 24 and barely known outside San Francisco, stole the show. She sang with such force that the crowd went silent, then exploded in applause. One critic wrote it felt like the earth had split open. That day, Janis went from unknown to sensation. The San Francisco Examiner put her on the front page, saying, Dreams come true in Monterey. Her song, Ball and Chain, became legendary. Her voice went from soft to a scream. She stomped the beat into the stage. Even Mama Cass from the Mamas and the Papas could be seen mouthing "wow" during the performance. The festival broke its own rule and asked Big Brother to play again the next day. Nobody else got that honor. The second set packed the tent with music industry giants. Columbia Records signed them. Janis's future was sealed. People like Clive Davis from Columbia Records and Albert Grossman, Bob Dylan's manager, saw what she had. Davis called her performance life-changing. He signed her right away. Grossman quickly became her manager. The music industry saw what fans already felt. Janis was a force no one could ignore. The press called her the real queen of the festival. Her image, barefoot, wild-haired, braless, and bold, was splashed across the world's newspapers and TV screens. She became America's first major female rock star, breaking into a scene ruled by men. In weeks, Janis was a household name. She changed not just music, but fashion and ideas about what a woman could be on stage. Before Janis, people didn't believe a white woman could truly sing the blues. She proved them wrong. Her voice carried the pain and soul of the blues greats. A producer at the festival said no one had seen a white girl sing the blues like that. Her raw power tore down walls of race and gender. Future stars like Stevie Nicks and Chrissie Hynde would later say Janis showed them what was possible. Janis Joplin's story took a wild turn in 1968 when Big Brother and the holding company released Cheap Thrills on August 12th. This wasn't just another album. It became a sensation, hitting #1 on the Billboard Top LPs chart in its 8th week. On October 12, 1968, it even knocked the Doors' Waiting for the Sun from the top spot. What made it even more remarkable was how it clung to that position for 8 non-consecutive weeks. The raw sound fooled many into thinking it was a live album, but only Ball and Chain was actually recorded live at the Fillmore East on March 8, 1968. The rest were studio tracks made to feel like a wild concert. This album wasn't just popular for a season. It was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2007, and Rolling Stone listed it among the 500 greatest albums of all time. By the end of 1968, Cheap Thrills had sold nearly 1 million copies. That was huge for any band back then, let alone a psychedelic rock group out of San Francisco. Piece of My Heart became an anthem, making Janis Joplin a force to be reckoned with. Her voice had a way of ripping into a song that no one could match. Other tracks like Summertime and Ball and Chain showed off that same power. The album's cover, with R. Crumb's comic art, jumped off store shelves. Cheap Thrills ended up as 1968's best-selling album. For a time, it even outsold the Beatles in the US. That's how big Joplin had become. But all that fame came at a price. As the spotlight focused on Joplin, cracks formed inside the band. The other members of Big Brother felt pushed into the shadows. Columbia Records and Joplin's manager, Albert Grossman, added to the pressure, urging her to break out as a solo act. Joplin herself wanted to try new sounds, horns, keyboards, and a style leaning toward soul and R&B, but Big Brother wanted to stick to their raw jam band vibe. Creative battles, fame, and heavy drug use made it impossible to hold things together. By late 1968, the split was only a matter of time. Joplin was at the top of the world, but she was also falling apart. Fame had brought more drinking, more heroin, more chaos. On stage, she swigged Southern comfort. Off stage, she leaned hard into heroin, trying to drown out anxiety, loneliness, and pressure. Her public image was bold and fearless. Inside, she struggled with what many think was manic depression and deep insecurities about her looks. The rock scene only made things worse. Partying, drugs everywhere, no one thinking much about addiction. Behind the wild persona was a woman who took criticism to heart and often felt alone in the crowd. In December 1968, Joplin made her break. She left Big Brother, despite the massive success they'd just shared. She knew it was a gamble, but the pull to create something new was stronger. By January 1969, she had formed the Cosmic Blues Band. Her new group had horns, keyboards, and a sound drawn from soul and R&B. Their first album, I Got Dem Ol' Cosmic Blues Again Mama, came out on September 11, 1969. It went gold in no time. Critics didn't know what to make of it. Some loved her raw energy. Others missed the old Big Brother vibe. The record label had rushed the album, hoping to cash in on cheap thrills. But whatever its flaws, Joplin's voice burned through every track. That year brought more highs and lows. At Woodstock on August 17, 1969, Joplin took the stage after a brutal 10-hour wait. She was drunk, high, or both, but she still poured her soul into the music. The crowd saw both the magic and the mess. Her set didn't make it into the original Woodstock film, likely because of her condition that night, but later releases brought it back, showing the raw power that made her unforgettable. Her personal life stayed as wild as her career. Joplin defied all the rules. She had lovers of all kinds, men, women, famous names like Jim Morrison and Chris Christopherson, and many more. She joked about her adventures, but underneath was a hunger to feel wanted and accepted. She shocked conservative America. Her music was banned in places, and she even got arrested for her language on stage. But she didn't care. She lived on her terms, even when it hurt. By 1969, though, the dark side of that lifestyle was catching up. Her heroin use soared. She was spending about $200 a day, thousands in today's money. Her friend Peggy Caserta became part of that dangerous world, both sharing in the highs and the destruction. Caserta's later book tried to tell the story, but many questioned its truth. In the end, the drugs won. On October 4, 1970, Joplin died of an overdose at just 27. Caserta survived but paid her own price with years of addiction. Even as she rose and fell, Joplin's letters home told a different story. She wrote to her family in Port Arthur, Texas, full of guilt, doubt, and longing. She admitted she felt lost in the music world and unsure of her choices. The bullying and cruelty she'd faced growing up never stopped haunting her. Fame gave her the stage, but not the peace she craved. Janis Joplin lived fast, loved wildly, and left behind a story as raw and heartbreaking as her music. From the moment she arrived in San Francisco in 1966, she was drawn into a world of chaos and freedom. That's where she met Peggy Caserta, the woman who would change her life forever. Janis and Peggy's relationship burned hot and cold. They shared everything, the highs of love, the lows of heroin. Janis didn't hide it. At a time when admitting you loved both men and women could ruin you, she didn't care. The world saw her as a rebel. To Peggy, Janis was a storm you could never hold on to. When Janis leaned out the window of her Haight-Ashbury apartment to call out to Peggy, it was like she was reaching for something she knew would always slip through her fingers. But Janis also wanted to feel desired, to prove to the world that she mattered. She had been mocked back in Port Arthur, Texas. They called her ugly, voted her the ugliest man at college. That pain never left her. So she chased men. Famous men like Jim Morrison, Joe Namath, Chris Christopherson, maybe even Jimi Hendrix. She wasn't just after pleasure. She was trying to quiet that voice inside that said she wasn't enough. The free love spirit of the 60s gave her a stage. But even then, when the parties ended and the music stopped, Janis felt empty. She once said, maybe people loved her music more because they thought she was destroying herself. And in many ways, she was. She tried to find something real. She got engaged 3 times. The last was to Seth Morgan, a 21-year-old student who also dealt cocaine. He came into her life during the summer of 1970. Janis was serious about him. She even announced the engagement, but Seth wasn't really there for her. He drifted in and out, just like so many others. Their plan for a threesome with Peggy Caserta fell apart right before Janis died. She felt abandoned by them both. That loneliness hung heavy in her final days. She kept searching for someone who would stay, but they never did. Not every love ended badly. She stayed friends with Chris Christopherson. He gave her Me and Bobby McGee. That song became her biggest hit after she died. It hit #1. Only Otis Redding had done that before her. The song's words fit her like a glove. Freedom, longing, loss, it was all there. And it showed how Janis could keep the best of what she shared with someone, even after love faded. That song still echoes today as a reminder of what she left behind. Her final months were a mix of brilliance and heartbreak. In the spring of 1970, she formed the Full Tilt Boogie Band. Finally, she had a band that let her be who she wanted musically. They recorded at Sunset Sound in Hollywood, laying down the tracks that would become Pearl. They worked hard. Between July and October, they recorded Cry Baby, Move Over, and Me and Bobby McGee. That album hit #1 after she was gone. It went quadruple platinum. Janis never saw its success. She checked into the Landmark Motor Hotel on August 24, 1970. Room 105. That's where her story ended. She threw parties, jammed with friends, but the weight of loneliness stayed with her. Hotel workers would see her wandering barefoot with her bottle of Southern Comfort in hand. And all the while, the music kept pouring out of her. Just 3 days before she died, she recorded Mercedes-Benz. One take, no instruments, just her voice, raw and real. That was Janis. No filter, no hiding. She mocked materialism in that song, but you could hear the ache behind the humor. Her producer, Paul Rothchild, pushed her to create something special with Pearl. He was known for working with The Doors. He made Janis do take after take. He wanted the album to shine, and it did. It was polished, but never lost the fire that made Janis who she was. Songs like Cry Baby and Me and Bobby McGee still hit hard today. Rothchild called it the most rewarding work of his career, but it was bittersweet. The album was a triumph wrapped in tragedy. Janis Joplin's last days were filled with plans, heartbreak, and decisions that ended in tragedy. On Friday, October 2, 1970, she had arranged what she thought would be an intimate escape with two of the people she trusted most. She planned a ménage à trois with her lover, Peggy Caserta, and her fiancé, Seth Morgan. The meeting was supposed to take place at the Landmark Motor Hotel in Los Angeles, where she was staying while working on her Pearl album. But neither of them showed up. Caserta decided at the last moment that she wanted nothing to do with Morgan. Morgan figured Caserta would be there and made other plans. Neither told Janis. She waited, confused and alone, not knowing both had backed out. That night, the loneliness hit hard. The people she counted on the most left her isolated at a moment when she was craving connection. The next day, October 3, 1970, Janis was still reeling from the emotional blow. She met her dealer to buy heroin. During that exchange, she opened up about what had happened. She told him both her friends had stood her up. That confession showed how deeply hurt and abandoned she felt. It wasn't just a drug deal, it was a sad, desperate attempt to dull the pain. The heroin she bought that day was unusually pure. It was the same batch that would kill several others in Los Angeles that weekend. Janis, heartbroken and vulnerable, didn't know that what she injected would be far stronger than she was used to. On the night of October 4, 1970, Janis was found dead on the floor of her hotel room, room 105, at the Landmark Motor Hotel. She had collapsed between her bed and the bedside table, with no sign of struggle. The heroin's extreme purity and the alcohol in her system made it a deadly combination. She likely died quickly after the injection, possibly striking her head as she fell. Her road manager, John Cook, discovered her body after she failed to show up for a recording session. That day, she had been scheduled to record vocals for Buried Alive in the Blues. When she didn't arrive, Cook went to the hotel. Her Porsche was parked outside. Inside, he found her lifeless body. The discovery was a shock that rippled through the music world. Just hours before, Janis had been full of energy, ready to complete her album. Janis was only 27 when she died. Her name was added to what would become known as the 27 Club, a group of legendary musicians who died at the same age. Jimi Hendrix, who passed just 16 days before Janis, was part of it. Jim Morrison, Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, and Brian Jones would also join the list. Janis's death came right as she was finishing her most successful album. It was a haunting end that added to the myths of rock and roll's dangerous edge. Pearl was released in January 1971, 3 months after she died. It became her biggest-selling album. It stayed at #1 on the Billboard 200 for 9 weeks. The album also topped charts in Australia, Canada, and the Netherlands. In the US alone, it sold over 4 million copies. The cover image of Janis, full of life and color, became iconic. One track, Buried Alive in the Blues, was left as an instrumental, a silent tribute to the voice that never got to finish it. Her recording of Me and Bobby McGee became her only #1 hit. It reached the top of the Billboard Hot 100 in March 1971. The song was recorded just days before her death. It captured both her strength and vulnerability, and its story of parting and loss mirrored her own life. Chris Christopherson, who co-wrote it, was devastated when he heard her version after she passed. Janis's ashes were scattered along the Marin County coastline, as she had asked in her will. A small plane released them over Stinson Beach and the Pacific Ocean. She left $2,500 for a final party. On October 26, 1970, friends gathered at the Lions Share Club. There were brownies laced with hash, endless drinks, and music. Invitations read, "Drinks are on Pearl." It was the perfect farewell for someone who lived wildly and on her own terms. In 1995, Janis was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 2005, she received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. These honors confirmed what fans already knew: Janis Joplin's voice, passion, and spirit would never fade. Her legend lives on, a reminder of the power and price of burning too brightly.